How can I help you, sir? You called me.
Well, actually, somebody from that number has called this number several times. So you guys keep calling me. I said that's the name that I'm known to use. How can I help you?
Okay. Well, you don't know you recorded. Looks like we were reaching out to you regarding your MasterCard account.
Okay. What about it?
Looks like you had missed the first. Well, we missed the first two payments.
Oh, who's claiming that?
So, I'm sorry, what was that?
Who's claiming that?
Well, we're not claiming that. It's a fact that we had missed the first two payments.
Oh, it's a fact? So you actually have first-hand knowledge of this?
Well, I'm showing a balance of $188.50.
What do you mean you're showing a balance? What do you mean by What do you mean by showing a balance?
Okay, did you not open up the card with us? Is that what
I'm sorry. What does that have to do with? I'm sorry, Cindy. I'm sorry, Cindy. Are you trying to avoid the question? I just asked you a specific question. Are you trying to avoid answering the question?
No, I'm not trying to avoid.
Well, then why don't you answer the question? Well, Cindy, the answer was a simple yes or no. And then you went on to try and convince me that
yes.
that something else is going on here. Well, I asked you a simple question. Could you? I'm sorry. Is it your policy to interrupt the people on the other end of the phone?
All right, so I apologize. Ask your question again.
Okay, I asked you who is claiming that there's a balance due. Who's claiming that?
Premier BankCard is claiming that there's a balance.
Premier BankCard. When can I speak with Premier BankCard?
I work for Premier BankCard.
Okay, so I didn't ask you that. I'm sorry, Cindy. I asked you if I could speak with Premier BankCard. Has Premier BankCard actually spoken with you to tell you that I owe something?
I work for Premier BankCard, sir.
What?
Yes, they are my employer. They're the ones.
Okay, then when you said that there was a balance, and I asked you if you had first-hand knowledge, that would be a no, then, right?
Okay, sir. How can I help you today?
I'm sorry. Could you answer the question? Could you, Cindy? I just asked you a question, and you just avoided it. So, the question is, so that means that you did. I'm sorry, Cindy. I did not. I just asked you if it was your policy to interrupt people when they're talking. Is it your policy to interrupt me when I'm talking?
No, sir.
Okay, then please answer the question. When you say that you work for Premier BankCard, then that means that you do not personally have any first-hand knowledge of this so-called balance due. Is that correct? Yes or no?
The only knowledge I have is what is on the account when I pull up your information.
What do you mean by on the account? What do you mean by on the account? What are you looking at? Are you looking at like a piece of paper or a computer screen or something?
Correct. I'm looking at a computer screen.
Okay, so so are you claiming that
information?
So are you claiming that the computer said this?
I'm stating that is what the information the bank has sent over when I entered in your information.
Okay, so the actual answer to the question, whether or not you have actual first-hand knowledge of this matter, the answer is no then, isn't that correct?
Okay, I don't understand where you're going with the line of crediting, sir.
How would you not understand? I understand. I asked you a simple question. I asked you if you had first-hand knowledge of this. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Again, it really must be your policy then to interrupt people while they're talking, right? Because you've done this now several times. You've done it several times. I've asked a simple question as to whether or not you have actual first-hand knowledge of this matter. You've answered everything but, and I appreciate you answering every question that I haven't asked, but I'd really appreciate it if you could answer the question that I have asked. Do you have first-hand knowledge of this matter? Yes or no? Cindy, Cindy, yes or no? Cindy,
I'm not understanding.
you don't, okay, so you don't understand firsthand knowledge, like you've actually seen it, you were actually a party to it, you actually witnessed it.
I work for the bank. I have the knowledge that they've given me.
Okay, so that's secondhand knowledge. That's hearsay, right?
Information that they've given me.
So that's hearsay, right? So that's hearsay, right?
Well, no, they only give me factual information.
Well, how do you know it's factual? How would you know it's factual? What first-hand knowledge do you have of this matter?
Okay, sir. I'm not understanding. What are you wanting me to say on this?
Well, do you know? Do you? Okay. You asked me a question. Could you allow me to answer, please? Could you allow me to answer, Cindy? Okay, you asked a question, and it's pretty polite to answer, to allow the person to answer the question when you ask it. So the question now to you is, since you said that you do not understand what I'm saying, do you understand what is first-hand knowledge versus hearsay or second-hand knowledge?
I understand that.
Okay, then okay. That's that. So you're agreeing that you're under my control right now, and you actually have no knowledge of this matter firsthand. Is that correct? That's a yes or no answer.
I have the information that the bank forwarded over. That.
Okay, so you then have hearsay information, correct? Because you never saw any of the contract, you've never actually witnessed any of the so-called purchases, nor have you ever seen me actually have a so-called card in my hand. Is that correct?
No, sir. I've never seen you in person.
Perfect. So then what you're doing right now, if I'm correct in this, the way the so-called law reads, you're actually telling me hearsay information, stuff that you do not have first-hand knowledge of, and you're claiming that I actually owe something off of. Did you know that that's considered fraud?
That's what I asked you in the beginning, if this is something that you hadn't opened.
What does that have to do with any? Okay, so you're really going to avoid the question then really hard, right? You're going to avoid the question and not answer it.
I've never avoided any question.
Yes, you have. Yes, you have. Yes, you have. Because you just said, I just asked you if you knew that was actually committing fraud. And I'm sorry, Cindy, but you're not answering the question. I asked you if you knew that was committing fraud, and you went off to start talking about something else, as if you didn't hear the question.
I didn't say. I asked if this was fraud. That's what I asked you.
Well, if you're actually, Cindy, listen.
The question that you're asking me, I'm assuming that.
Well, Cindy, if you do not have actual knowledge of something and you're claiming that it's actual, factual information, could it be that that's fraud when you do not know anything about it and you're just claiming that it's all real? Could it be that that's fraud? Have you ever looked up the definition of fraud? I'll take that as a no. Silence is consent, Cindy. Could it be, Cindy, when you don't answer a question, you just consented that the question asked is whatever it is, whatever the answer is I want it to be, instead of, since you didn't respond? Could it be? Have you ever heard silence is consent, Cindy? Have you ever heard that term? Silence is consent? I asked you if you knew it was fraud to actually tell somebody that you knew something to be factual when you have no first-hand actual knowledge of it.
I'm just wondering how I can help you today, sir.
Well, since you're committing fraud, how about this? Because I don't like to talk to people that want to commit fraud. Could you patch me through to the person with the first-hand knowledge of this matter, please? Would that be okay?
I have received first-hand knowledge of this. Is that what you're saying?
I'm asking you to get me in contact with the person with the first-hand knowledge of this matter, whoever that may be. Since that's not you, could I please speak to whoever is claiming?
Are you asking for a manager?
I don't know. Does a manager actually have first-hand knowledge of this matter, or is a manager just the same as you and just relying on hearsay? Could it be that it's committing fraud to actually tell somebody that they owe something when you don't have any first-hand knowledge of it?
Okay, when you called me, sir, I haven't called.
Oh, but you're forgetting, Cindy. You're forgetting that somebody from this number has called the number that I use, the number that I'm on right now, several times. Several times. So it's not you helping me. I'm here to help you. I'm asking to speak to whoever it is that's claiming that I owe something so that I could settle that matter with them, specifically, personally, in honor. So could you please connect me with whoever it is that's actually claiming I owe something? Would that be possible? Could you do that, please, Cindy?
Yeah, well, hold on. I will let you speak with the manager because they would be the only ones that would know that first-hand information. Hold on just a
Really?
moment.
So the manager's going to have first-hand knowledge. That'll be great. Perfect.
I can only transfer you to a manager, so I don't have any access to transfer you to anybody else.
Okay, well, that's great. I guess as long as the manager has first-hand knowledge, that'll be wonderful.
Hold on just a second.
Mr. Brown, how may I help you today?
I can barely hear you. Can you speak up, please?
My name is Lisa. How may I help you today?
I can't. What's the name? I can't hardly hear you. Is it possible that you could be speaking a little closer to the microphone or speak up?
I don't think I can get it any closer. I'm sorry if there's a delay in the connection. My name is Lisa. How can I help you today?
Oh, I don't know, Lisa. I was just talking to Cindy, and Cindy told me that she didn't have any first-hand knowledge of this matter, so I asked to speak to whoever does have the first-hand knowledge of this matter.
What is it I can help you with?
Do you have the first-hand knowledge of the matter?
I don't know what matter you're referring to, so...
Well, Cindy was claiming that I owed something, and I asked to speak to whoever is claiming I owe something so that I could settle the matter honorably with them. And then she, instead of answering that question, she started to go on about how there's a balance and all this other stuff. And it kind of came around to she doesn't actually have any first-hand information through the course of several questions it took to get to that point, because she kept answering every question that I didn't ask. But finally she did answer the question that I did ask. So I asked her, she said she couldn't help me because she did not have first-hand knowledge of the matter. So I asked her if I could speak to whoever did. Is that you? Do you have first-hand knowledge of the matter?
I don't... You're not making it clear what the matter is.
Well, Cindy said there's something... Cindy said there's...
balances on the card you owe us, or...
Well, if you ask a question, could you be kind enough to actually let me answer?
Sir, I was asking the question.
What question then? Because you said something about a question. It sounded like you asked me a question. Like what matter? I told you. Cindy is claiming that there's something owed on something called a Premier BankCard.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, so you know about that matter then.
Your name, but
What's that?
you have an account open with Premier BankCard that has a current balance of $188.
I do. I do. So you know that for a fact.
Are you saying you don't have an account with
Did
us?
I ask? Did I?
Are you saying...
Lisa, if you ask a question, it's really nice to actually stop and let the person answer, because you just did it again. You just asked a question and you kept talking. I asked you. I'm sorry. Oh, wow. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm so sorry that the middle of my sentence keeps interrupting the beginning of yours. I don't have anything to say until you're completely done.
Did you apply for the card with us?
Did I ask you anything about that? Or did I ask to talk to the person that has the first-hand knowledge of this matter? I believe there's a huge difference.
If you applied for the
what difference, Lisa? What difference does it make if you're not the one with the first-hand knowledge of this contract? What difference does that make?
I guess we have nothing to discuss if you don't want to answer the question. I thank you for your time, Carl.
Well, Lisa, why would you hang up, Lisa? If you hang up, could it be that I don't owe anything and you're in agreement of that as soon as you hang up?
No, you do owe us.
I do. So you're committing. Wait a minute, Lisa. Lisa.
You don't want to go through that with me.
Lisa.
And I'm not going to waste your time or my time.
Who said it's a waste of time? Who's a waste? Lisa. Could it be that I've been asking questions, trying? Have you ever considered that? Have you ever considered that I might be just seeking some clarification? What's that?
To get clarification, that would require cooperation.
Well, that's right. That means that you need to answer questions then. Lisa, in order for there to be cooperation, it means you need to answer questions. If I've asked a question, in order for you to be cooperative, it means you need to answer the question. So what you're telling me is you do not have first-hand knowledge, which means that I believe you're committing fraud. Is that true? Because you don't have any first-hand knowledge, and you just said that as a fact that I have something that's owed. Oh, so really? Did you know that telling somebody something without having first-hand knowledge and trying to get something out of them is considered fraud? That's the legal definition.
I'm asking.
So that's what I believe you're doing here, Lisa.
So I'm going to disconnect the call.
Why would you disconnect the call? An agreement that there is nothing owed. And these calls are being recorded, right? Right, Lisa?
And the recording will show that I'm clearly stating that there is a balance owed on this
How
account.
do you know that? How do you know that with first-hand information? Lisa, how do you know that with first-hand information?
I'm disconnecting the call.
Lisa, who's Carl? Who said to call me Carl?